It's time for another conservative mom movie review. Today, I want to talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which came out in 2022, and I just watched with my husband to review for you all. If you are new to my channel, here we talk about classic living and traditional values, and I would love if you would consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And I have started this series on my channel where I review movies just for moms like you who are trying to figure out if a movie that they want to watch with their kids is appropriate or if it has any woke content. I am here to watch it, vet it, and let you know. I asked you all if you wanted to see older movies or only new movies that are coming out, and y'all pretty unanimously said that you wanted to see movies that are older and newer. You want to see reviews of movies that maybe you haven't seen, but that didn't come out literally today. So I'm excited to get into this review for you all. And the way that we do it here on Conservative Mom Reviews is I break it down into 3 sections. Section number 1, is it watchable? Do you enjoy watching it? You can watch a movie that's probably not great for your kids and think, yeah, I enjoyed that. It wasn't the best lesson. Maybe there was some woke content, but it was watchable. Number 2 is the wokeness meter. Is this movie woke? What in it is going to be influencing my children? And number 3 is, should you take your children to see it? So with that, let's hop right into today's video and start with the plot of the film. Puss in Boots, who is the hero of our film, he's kind of a cartoon version of Zorro, has found out that as a cat, he is on the last of his 9 lives. A personification of death pursues him, and he decides to hide himself away and grow old and accept his lot. But then he finds out that there's a map to a wishing star. The wishing star allows one person who finds it to make a wish. After meeting an optimistic chihuahua named Perito and reconnecting with his old flame, Kitty Softpaws, the 3 of them embark on a journey to find the wishing star, with Goldilocks and the 3 bears and Jack Horner in hot pursuit. They also want the wishing star. Of course, Puss in Boots wants to find the wishing star so that he can get back his 9 lives, but everyone else has a reason for pursuing the wishing star too. And the lesson of the film is that the real way to come to terms with death, not defeat it, but come to terms with it, is to find people you can live for. Rather than suffering with a fear of mortality, living for the people you love will give your life meaning and context. Because up until this point in Puss in Boots' life, he has always been obsessed with his persona and his fame. He never had a real purpose in his life, and so he had this extreme fear of mortality. Rather than accepting that death is a natural part of life and actually in many ways gives life meaning, because we know there's something that brings it to an end. So, question number 1, is this movie watchable? The answer is yes. The movie is very watchable. As an adult, I found it very fun and entertaining to watch. The art style is beautiful. The plot is very easy to follow. It's a fun movie and it's fun to watch, absolutely. I would say that the structure of the film is a little odd because it's not a typical 3-act structure. It kind of felt like the first third of the movie was prologue, and then the last 2/3 of the movie were all in the same vein. Like there was no twist, it just was very straightforward. They were just looking for the star. I found that to be a little odd as far as structure, but it was very watchable. But I do think that for kids under 7 or 8, it would probably be overstimulating because the colors are really saturated and the cuts and the way that it's filmed or drawn or however you want to describe it is a little bit overwhelming, but for kids over 7 or 8, I think it would be absolutely fine. I enjoyed it, my husband enjoyed it. We watched it as adults without our son there, so it was fun for us, even with that. Okay, let's move on to part number 2, the wokeness meter. Was there anything in this film that was woke? No. That is a very exciting development. This movie did not push an agenda. It did not try to get across something to your kids, slide it subtly into their brains, not at all. It was just a straightforward story. There was no oppression Olympics. It wasn't women having to be stronger than men or race politics or anything just being forced in front of your children's eyes without your permission, right? Like there wasn't an ideology that the movie was trying to get across, that the filmmakers were trying to get across. They had a story they wanted to tell and they told it. So here is the final question of today's video. Should you take your children to see it? So let's start with a few things. Number 1 is language. The film does say the word crap twice, and there is a joke where it bleeps out a swear word. I don't love that for kids. I'm not a big fan of that for kids. I don't think that crap is a terrible word, but I try not to expose my young children to that. I think 11 or 12, okay, it's fine. But for little kids, you probably don't want them to hear that kind of language. And second, the movie deals heavily with death. I mean, that is the theme of this film. In a lesser sense, Jack Horner, who is the villain of the film, his accomplices who he brings along with him on his pursuit of the wishing star die really frivolously, and it's kind of supposed to be a joke. You have the Jiminy Cricket-esque character on his shoulder saying like, do you value life? But it's all within the framework of a joke. So I don't think that that's the greatest thing. I mean, people are dying willy-nilly and it's kind of just like, haha, funny. But more than that, the story is talking about how we can come to terms with death and mortality in our own lives, which is a very high concept for little kids. And the character of death is very frightening. I find that with young children, if they get scared of something in a film, they want to dump out. They don't want to watch the rest of the movie because they're afraid. They don't want to sit through something that scares them. And often what happens is that parents are like, if you just wait until the very end of the movie, you'll see everything works out. It's not scary. It's all okay. And a little kid can't necessarily sit through an hour and 40 minutes of something that is scaring them. And so what ends up happening is that you have little kids who build up in their mind the scary part and they never get the resolution. And then you look back in like 10 years and that child still thinks that that was one of the scariest movies they'd ever seen. I know that happened to me. I've seen that happen to other little kids. So for me, I think that those themes about death and the visual of death, I think that that is too mature for children under 7 or 8. I think that little kids under 7 or 8 are gonna find that too scary. And to be honest, the concept is gonna go over their head anyway. But the lesson of the film is very mature. And so even a 7 or 8-year-old can watch it, have fun, be fine with it. They're not necessarily gonna take away any kind of lesson. They might just view this as a romance between the kitty Softpaws and Puss in Boots. And I don't think any kid is really gonna get anything out of it until they're 11 or 12. Because again, these are like adult concepts. I mean, I think that there is a good lesson to be taught to older kids, because what you can kind of help them see through this movie is that fame and persona and the kind of things that their kids are pursuing nowadays because of social media and because of YouTube and because of Instagram, that stuff is not going to give your life meaning at the end of the day. It's actually gonna make you lonelier. And when you are faced with your mortality and you are faced with, yeah, life isn't going to last forever, then the things that will give you comfort and make you recognize why life shouldn't be forever are the things that matter more than what you look like on an Instagram post. And in the age of TikTok and social media, that's a good lesson for kids, especially 11 and 12-year-olds. Now, I will say on another note, I find that modern animated features are a lot more cynical than they used to be. Like older Disney movies, when you watch them, are just sweet and idealistic and invoke a sense of childlike wonder in the world. But nowadays, it feels like animated films are not made for children. It almost feels like they are made for the adults who take their children to see it. And I would say that like the first 30 or 40 minutes of this movie were really targeted at the adults who would understand all the references and all of that. And then the last part of the film is more plot driven, so it is more for the kids. But just as an overall thing, that cynical take on children's animated films, I wish we could go back to the childlike innocence of the movies I grew up with and early Disney movies. So should you take your children to see it? I would say yes if they're over 7 or 8, but they're not really gonna get anything out of it until they're 11 or 12. So that is my review of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below if you've seen this movie, what did you think, or would you take your children to see it based on this review? I would love to know. And leave a comment about what you want me to review next. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!